Okay, so I didn't know this. I really sat down internet and did some research, and I had no idea that a lot of people did not like Larry Hama's run on Generation X. For me personally, it's just okay. Not amazing, it's not horrible, but for a lot of people, they hate the run. And I kind of see why, but it's Larry Hama. Let me explain. As y'all know, Larry Hama is probably the best writer for Wolverine. There's Chris Claremont, there's Larry Hama. I know some folks out there, they put Larry first. For some folks out there, they put Chris first. It goes vice versa. But when it came to Larry Hama, occasionally he would give us those random wacky stories. You're like, a little bit too wacky for Wolverine, but okay, get back on track now, Larry. And he would. But I feel like for him, coming over to Generation X, it kind of felt like the door was open for him to do all kinds of wacky stories. And this, for me personally, is another one where we see a character coming back into the picture. Really sorry, scratch that. She's coming back to Earth, but it is her first appearance in Marvel Comics, and it's also her coming after Emma Frost to get revenge. Now, I do know for some people out there, they didn't like the idea of Terry Dawson's artwork either once you had him officially take over as the artist for Generation X. But anyways, getting into the opening pages for issue number 42, we do pick up with our heroes right now, just playing some good old miniature golf. It's a good old fun activity. And you do have Banshee of all people kind of taking the game very seriously. And Emma Frost, she's winning just left and right, holding one in every single hole. But we do see a few things happening at this golf course. Like, for example, the idea of two random girls beginning to have a crush on Chamber. They find him attractive, don't realize that behind that scarf, he may no longer be so attractive like they think he is. But either way, while you do have all these different things going on, we also see that the new character is also here and beginning her plan to come after Emma Frost, and that would be Bianca. Now, we had met Bianca in an earlier video we had done for Generation X. And when it comes to Bianca, we had learned that she was also part of the Hellfire Club. But she looked at Emma Frost as this rival that she had to bring down, especially after you had Emma Frost going out of her way to take over Bianca's company. And so for Bianca, she wanted revenge against Emma Frost even back then. And so she used one of her company's research projects that involved alien technology and tried to use it against Emma Frost, but unfortunately it backfired and sent her into a different dimension. Now, she was able to come back, but now it's her saying, you know what, it's time for me to get revenge against Emma Frost. Now, we also have to remember that when it came to Bianca, she also has the ability to manipulate energy and matter around her. And so when it came to her coming back into the main dimension, the main Marvel universe, well, we saw her being able to use that power on some random aliens and kind of turn them into doors and basically force them to work for her. And she says once they're done with her mission, she'll then turn them back into normal. Now, this storyline also takes place around the same time as X-Men issue number 77 and 78. The idea of the storyline called Psy-War, where you had the Shadow King go out of his way to take over the astral plane. Now, when he did that, he made sure that all telepaths were off the board. So Jean Grey, Emma Frost, Psylocke, and also now apparently Bianca and Chamber as well. Now, we had covered a storyline that involved Jean Grey being affected by this. And so now it's kind of us seeing how Emma Frost, Chamber, and even Bianca is also being affected by this. Because once you do have that side wave hit the entire world, hitting all telepaths across the world, you have Chamber pass out, you have Emma Frost fall down, and you have Bianca also get knocked out as well because that side wave did a number to all telepaths across the board. But once you do have everyone being able to wake back up after being hit by the side wave the Shadow King had created, well, this leads into a whole lot of things popping off at the golf course because the two girls from earlier who were hitting on Chamber, well, they begin the process of pulling down his mask or his scarf. Now, let's not forget, when it comes to Chamber, behind that scarf, there's no mouth there. The bottom part of his face and also the upper part of his body is missing and been replaced with psionic energy, but that psionic energy keeps him alive. And so when they do pull down that scarf, they realize that he is not normal at all. Now, of course, with the two girls kind of freaking out and everything else happening, the golf course owner also comes out and sees some kind of energy, or his mindset, fire behind the boy's scarf. And so he also begins to freak out. And so for Generation X, they realize that most likely they should go ahead and just leave and head back over to school. But on the way home to the school, you didn't have our heroes realize that there was some kind of car accident. And the person who was involved in that car accident is no other than Gaia. Now, we have talked about her character in some of our earlier videos when it came to Generation X. Here's the problem, though, when it comes to Gaia. We never did learn what her origin is. And when it comes to Marvel Comics, we still haven't up to the present day. And so for Gaia, all we know is that she is a mutant that was sent into another dimension to basically be a safeguard for a very powerful device in that dimension. Now, thanks to our last storyline, she was finally able to be free and come into the main Marvel universe. And so right now we see that she got into a car accident. And the reason why, because she was also affected by the psi wave as well. But for our heroes, they weren't the first one to arrive at the scene. Matter of fact, you had the sheriff of the city arrive at the scene first, and that would be Sheriff Authier. Now, we met him like a couple of videos ago, and when it came to the sheriff, at first we kind of left to believe that he was just your regular police officer, and that was really it. But he also kind of occasionally drops hints here and there that kind of says like there's a possibility that he is a mutant. And matter of fact, this is one of those moments again because he also kind of speaks in the way of knowing that Emma Frost, Chamber, and also Gaia are mutants, but psychic mutants. But he also knows the rest of the crew is also mutants as well, but also kind of hinting that he's also a psychic mutant that was also affected by the psi wave. Either way, he says, you know what, guys, take the girl and take her to your school right now. And again, our heroes leave. But to close on the first chapter of the storyline, we do pick up with Bianca. And you have Bianca right now just beating down on her crew. And the reason why, because they were going to kill her off while she was knocked out thanks to the psi wave. But they realized that they couldn't do that because if they do kill her off, then they lose the chance of being turned back to their normal forms again. And so they kind of stopped trying to kill her, but either way, she's still very upset about the idea they even thought about doing that to her in the first place. But either way, while you do have Bianca right now just beating down on her crew while their spacecraft flies around the Earth, they get knocked out the sky by another aircraft. And that would be LCD and also Albert. And LCD and Albert are very important characters for, well, Wolverine comics. And so as we move on to issue number 43, we're really getting into the idea of us seeing Banshee right now, giving Emma Frost and also Chamber a training session. And the reason why, because with the idea of the Shadow King taking over the astral plane and cutting off some of the abilities for telepaths across the world, for Banshee, he wants to make sure that for Chamber and also Emma Frost, they're still okay to be out there in the field with the rest of the team. Now, we also learn here that Emma Frost, she's an amazing fighter. But for Chamber, it's the idea that now he lost the ability to communicate. Because for Chamber, he really did rely on the idea of being a telepath to communicate with his teammates. With that now being gone, it's kind of like, how can he warn the other team members out in the field? And so for Banshee, he kind of goes through this whole training session for Chamber and also Emma Frost. Now, after that, some time has passed by, and we do see Singh going to the door to basically pick up a piece of delivery that he had ordered for the entire crew. The problem is that the two people who are delivering the pizza are the same two people who attacked Singh a while ago. Dorian and Weasel. Now, technically, these two characters are not really important, so we could actually go ahead and move on with our lives. But while you do have the two guys trying to deliver pizza, but also somewhat making a threat, well, out of nowhere, their car is completely crushed by a spacecraft. Of course, that spacecraft belongs to Bianca. And unfortunately, the reason why I say unfortunately is because the rest of this chapter is really more of us just seeing the new, I almost said the new mutants, seeing Generation X fighting against Bianca and the forces she brought with her. So we do get that one-on-one battle between Bianca and Emma Frost. Now again, with the astral plane being controlled by the Shadow King, it technically means the battle is really evenly matched. But you do have Emma Frost show off that she can use the environment around her as a way to bring down Bianca. And the thing is, she used different things in the kitchen to allow her the ability to win. But again, it still counts. And so by the end of this chapter, we do see Emma Frost had defeated Bianca. We also see the rest of the crew for Generation X were able to stop Bianca's group, but you did have a phone call happen. And the phone call is Teresa, better known as Siren, also better known as the daughter of Banshee. But as we move on to issue number 44, we're now picking up a few hours after the ending for issue number 43. And we do learn that when it came to Bianca and her crew, they're now being forced to do repairs to the biosphere that belongs to Generation X. Now, the biosphere is like the danger room for Generation X. But while you have them fixing that, for Banshee, Chamber, and also Husk, they're going to go ahead over to the airport. And the reason why, because for Husk, she's going back home for a short period of time. Now, we had talked about the idea of her mother getting very sick because remember, guys, Husk is the sister to Cannonball. And so over in X-Force Comics, we saw Cannonball go back home and find out that his mom's very sick and, of course, needs a treatment. And so for Husk, she's also heading back home as well. But also for Banshee, his daughter is paying a visit. Again, that will be Siren. But now we have to switch over to Jubilee and also Gaia. Now for Jubilee, she's kind of wondering what to do here. And let me explain, because for Jubilee, she does have a crush on Sync. But the thing is, Sync has a crush on Gaia. And so for Jubilee, she's kind of wondering, even if she does have a chance to be with Sync, because right now Sync is trying to get with Gaia. But while you do have Jubilee talk to the Gaia about the idea of Sync liking Gaia, you have Jubilee realize that Sync is leaving the school for some kind of reason, but he's also carrying a cigar box. Now, we had learned earlier on our coverage over Generation X that when it came to a cigar box, for Skin, he had kept a gun inside a cigar box. And so for Jubilee, she's kind of wondering if there is a possibility that Sync might use that gun on people who had hurt him in the past. Now, for a brief moment, we do go over to the airport where we do see Banshee, Chamber, and also Husk pick up Teresa, better known as Siren. Now, there is a layover for 2 hours, so it gives the chance for basically Banshee and also Teresa have a conversation with one another, but also give a chance for Chamber and also Husk to have some alone time before she heads back home on her flight. Now, you do have the story kind of shift back and forth between three different moments happening at the same time. So, like, for example, the idea of Husk and Chamber, their whole entire conversation about the idea of Husk wondering, like, will Chamber wait for her until she gets back because she might be gone for a good while. Her mother is very sick. Now, let's not forget, with the side wave hitting right now for Chamber, he's no longer able to communicate like he used to with his telepathy. And so, unfortunately, he really can't say anything to Husk, and so he has to write it down. But it's also him kind of announcing, not pronouncing, but announcing his love for Husk. And for Husk, she loves the idea that him right now wants to wait for her, but also the possibility of him being madly in love with her as well. Now, when it comes to Sync, his whole storyline is really more him handing money over to Weasel and Dorian to help pay for the car that got crushed in the last chapter when it came to Bianca's spacecraft crashing at the school to basically fight against Emma Frost. And so it's really Sync just trying to be a good person. And it's Jubilee kind of, well, just jumping the gun. Before actually trying to figure out what Sync is trying to do, she automatically believed that he was going to shoot somebody. And the two guys were the ones she thought he would shoot because in an earlier storyline, they had beaten him up badly to the point where he had to go to the hospital. But instead of fighting against them, he's actually helping them. Now, the plot line going on with Banshee and also his daughter is really more the two characters just bonding with one another again. Because let's not forget, for Banshee, he was not really around for Teresa when it came to her growing up. Now, for me personally, he's kind of innocent here. And the reason why, because well, he didn't know she was around. Like he had no idea he had a daughter. And technically she was being raised by Black Tom. But it's the two of them kind of come to term that they can kind of move on from the past. And really, honestly, we already saw this before, like the whole idea of her forgiving him and him kind of understanding that he was not a failure, but like he did fail somewhat as a father, but he's now trying his best to turn things around for the two characters relationship. But you do have to kind of say like, dude, I'm happy that you are my father because you gave me your great looks. But to go ahead and end the storyline on issue number 44, we do see that once you have Banshee and Chamber and Teresa come back over to the school, well, you didn't have them realize the biosphere is gone. Like it is completely gone, but so is Bianca, and so is, well, her crew as well. Now, they do find this photo that was suddenly taken right when the biosphere was, well, stolen. And they come to find out the biosphere is somewhere or possibly in a different point in time. But as we transition into Generation X issue number 45, we're now getting into the idea that Emma Frost is upset about something. And you have everyone realize there's something going on with her. But unfortunately for this storyline here, or this chapter here, that kind of does get put on the back burner until almost the very end of this chapter, because now we had to switch over to Jubilee and also Skin. And we learned that for those two characters, they have been trying to get Chamber out of the bedroom, but also that this chapter does take place a few days after the ending of the last chapter. And so for Skin and also Jubilee, they have been trying their best to get him out, but like he's not leaving. And let's not forget, with the Sideways still being around, that for Chamber, he's no longer truly able to communicate. So they have no idea what's truly going on with Chamber at the moment. But Homeboy is not leaving his room. And they're kind of wondering is because, well, Husk is no longer around for the time being. Now, when it comes to Emma Frost, we also see her right now in the training room just trying to, well, it seems like she's trying to release some stress at the moment or release some anger that has been built up inside of her. But for Banshee, kind of realized that there is a possibility that she needs somebody to talk to. So his goal right now is to be that person that she could possibly talk to. But now we have to switch over to Monet. Now, for Monet, I kind of realized that ever since we had discovered her true origin, she kind of been put on the back burner for the time being. But it's also Monet trying to figure out, like, what exactly happened to the biosphere. But also, she's questioning Leech and Artie like there's a possibility they might know what happened to the biosphere. But it's also her being very upset about the idea of no one kind of wondering if she is okay, because when the side wave hit the Earth, it also affected her powers as well. Now, she has many powers, so she only lost the ability of being a telepath. But again, she hates the idea no one had came to her to see how she's doing, the whole idea of losing her ability of a telepath. But the rest of this chapter is really more of us kind of seeing Emma Frost explaining like what's going on with her. Why is she so upset? And so when it comes to Banshee, he does try his best to reason with her, to understand her. And the thing is for Emma Frost, she had heavily relied on her abilities when it came to her growing up in life, going through life. And so the idea of losing her ability kind of makes her feel like she's a nobody again, because she has no idea where to go with her life. Now, for Banshee being her right-hand man, he does explain things to her like, yes, you had those powers, but those powers did not define you because you have been a villain, a hero. You have run a successful business. Like you have been many different things without the idea of your powers. And so once you have Emma Frost kind of hear those words, that is when the side wave officially ends when it comes to Generation X, because now Emma Frost has regained her abilities, but she also tells Banshee, thank you for being there in her corner. But the book does end on the note with the idea of Gaia officially joining Generation X, but also Emma Frost kind of hinting of the idea of something new coming to the actual team. Now, this is the end for Larry Hama's run on Generation X, and then we do get a new writer come in and try his best to save this series until it was officially canceled in the early 2000s. But with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.